Hi there, my name is Pat Kane. Welcome to the Constitute. What is a constitute? Well, as we say every week, it's a new noun in the dictionary. There's no definition for it, so we're trying to fill it up with one, and by doing what we're doing here. What I understand the Constitute to be is a flexible structure that enables agency and great conversation. So this is what we're doing. This is the Constitute. And so what that means is basically looking at my torrent of information that comes through on my channels and picking a few things that rise up out of it, and trying to rub them together and contextualize them and see whether something new and interesting can come out. So the first of these is a TV series from Norway, which you can get on iPlayer, and which was the last 3 series have been on BBC4, called State of Happiness. I won't attempt to say the Norwegian version of that, but it's called State of Happiness. It's completely fascinating. It's about the 70s to kind of early 80s, mid-late 80s oil boom in Norway. And it's a series, it's got a cast of excellent, diverse characters. It's a very effective drama. But what it shows is, a national community focused through a specific town, Stavanger, a particular civic community, wrestling with this massive prospect of petrochemical oil wealth. And it's charming, and the reason why it's charming is because they managed to solve all their problems just about, mostly by the end of every episode, with acts of characteristic Nordic Scandinavian decency. It's quite political. There's quite a debate going on explicitly about socialist or social democratic countries facing up against American oil giants, and those American oil giants railing at them for being extractive, fiscally confident social democrats or socialists. The joy of it at the end is that they set up the Sovereign Wealth Fund, which of course is the envy of the world at the moment for Norway, because it has about €1 trillion or $1 trillion in it. And it's explicitly seen as an act of, progressive heroism on the part of Anna, who's a lowly assistant who becomes an entrepreneur and eventually crafter of the Sovereign Wealth Fund. So it's intrepid. There's lots of maritime and marine daring do. There's a few deaths, it's true, but highly meaningful and not at all throwaway. But it's a spectacle of a national political community digging into its own resources, digging into its own resourcefulness, and trying to make oil and gas not be what they used to call a resource curse, as in when it comes to a small country anywhere in the world, these petrochemicals destroy lifestyles, destroy the society, create pathologies of all kinds. Not so with Norway, and as you'll be appreciating as a Scot who lived in Scotland that discovered North Sea oil at the same period, as the Norwegians, the absence of a sovereign wealth fund and the absence of this discovery as a resource, as a driver of endogenous national development it's acutely painful to watch at times, it has to be said, as someone who supported and supports the prospect of a Scottish independent nation state. More about that and more about the challenges of that later on in this little video. But I would recommend that you see it. It's an example of non-aggressive, non-pathological communitarian drama, and it's done beautifully and done well, and they must have had a fortune to spend on the music syncs, because every 70s and 80s song that you'd want to hear is on the soundtrack of this TV show. So in itself, a display of Norwegian excellence. And just to remind you that all of the links mentioned will be in the Substack below this video, so you can go and make your own connections and adventures yourself. So I wanted to juxtapose this next item to State of Happiness, because State of Happiness shows an awful lot of 70s and 80s materialism and excess and sort of blundering around with this newfound wealth. And the next item I want to talk about is a piece of solar punk science fiction, which takes place explicitly after what the author Becky Chambers calls the factory age, which could as easily be the fossil fuel age, which has bequeathed to the Norwegians their fantastic social fund and social cushion, but has taken the planet to the precipice of runaway climate warming and tipping points. And this Becky Chambers novellas that we picked up in the Alternative Weekly this week. The Alternative is a kind of political think tank prototyping space that we've been running with Indra Adnan for the last 8 years. But we found these two, what they're called is soft core, solar punk. But they're definitely gentle versions of the science fiction genre. One book's called A Psalm for the Wild Built, and the other book's called A Prayer for the Crown Shy. And the writer Becky Chambers, in the piece that I'm going to share with you below, says that she wanted to write fiction for people who wanted a break from the relentless strains of living in an accelerated planet. And the way that she's done it is to set these two characters in her books, one of which is a robot, another which is a monk, in a society that she says in the interview is trying to kind of cope with the aftermath of the disaster. So in a sense, what happens, she says, when the dust settles. So this is what the Norwegians could be building with the resources that they're doing. I'm not sure whether they are or not, but these are beautiful books. I've been reading some of them today. So the joy of these books, indeed the joy of solar punk in general, is the way that it combines often very artsy, crafty, organic modes of behaviour and styles of life, and mixes that in with advanced technology, but in its most appropriate form. So just in the everyday, the monk is a tea monk, and the tea monk goes along and therapeutically sets up their tray with their teas, and people come along and have a cup of tea and disburden themselves to the tea monk. They pay for it by tapping their devices together. It's not, the society hasn't been reduced to mud coins or whatever. It's the technology is still there. The technology is there, and the caravan that helps to sustainably power their tour around the various villages in this land, in this recovering post-eco-apocalyptic land, and everything is gentle. And there's a lovely premise to this book, which is that at a certain point in the past of this Earth-like planet called Penga, it was a robot-servile society. Basically, robots were there doing everything for humans, and then at some point they become sentient, and when they become sentient, they demand their rights, and when they demand their rights, they demand to be left to survive in the forest, because they want to be, as it says at the beginning of the first book, Psalm for the Wild Built, they want to be in places that are not designed. So they're ultimately designed, and they want to be in places that are not designed, that are grown and organic, so that they can, I guess, test out their sentience and their newly discovered agency and consciousness. So that's a lovely premise, and the monk and the robot strike up a friendship. The robot comes out of the forest to meet the monk, and the monk responds to the robot, and then they have their adventures. So solar punk is restorative and glues you together in a way that much science fiction media does not glue you together. It tears you apart at the seams. And it's always a great wonder to me at what point something like this becomes filmable or animatable in the way that the dystopian SF narratives more readily seem to be in British and American image culture and culture industry. So here's hoping. I'd love to see it. Okay, I think that's that. All the links will be below that I've mentioned, and some more besides. Thanks very much for watching. If you want to support my work, please do so through subscribing to the channel through the usual Substack means and buttons. If you want to talk to me on a consultancy basis, I'm very happy to talk to you. And as I am tending to say at the end of these events, ad astra. See you next time.